Imagine being a police officer and receiving a letter from a serial killer. Not unusual. Now, imagine the letter contains details that were never released to the public. Details only the killer could know. Still not unusual. But then imagine this. The killer includes a secret code and claims that if anyone solves it, they'll learn something important about him. The code gets published. Thousands of people try to crack it. Newspapers, teachers, cryptography enthusiasts, even federal investigators. Eventually, the code is solved.
But instead of revealing his identity, it reveals something far more disturbing. The mind of a killer. And that's when America realized they weren't hunting an ordinary murderer. They were hunting someone who enjoyed the fear, someone who wanted attention, someone who turned murder into a game. His name? The Zodiac Killer. And more than 50 years later, nobody knows who he really was. To understand why this case still fascinates the world, we need to go back to the beginning, before the headlines, before the ciphers, before the letters, back to a lonely road in California. December 20th, 1968, Lake Herman Road. A quiet stretch of road near Benicia, the kind of place where teenagers could escape the noise of the city. That night, two young people were parked there, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen. For them,
it was supposed to be a normal evening. A date. A drive. A few hours together. Nothing more. But somewhere nearby, someone was watching. At some point during the night, an unknown person approached their vehicle. What happened next lasted only moments. Gunshots shattered the silence. When authorities arrived, the scene was devastating. Both teenagers had been shot. Neither survived. Police immediately launched an investigation. Detectives searched for clues. Witnesses were interviewed. Evidence was collected. But despite their efforts, the killer seemed to have vanished. No obvious suspect, no clear motive, and very few answers. At the time, many investigators believed this was a tragic but isolated crime. A terrible event, but perhaps not the work of a serial killer. Unfortunately, that theory wouldn't last long, because 6 months later, the nightmare returned. July 4th, 1969, Vallejo, California. Another young couple, another parked vehicle, another quiet night. Darlene Farron and Michael Majo were spending time together in a parking area. Everything seemed normal, until another car slowly entered the lot. The vehicle stopped, then left. For a moment, nothing happened. Then it returned. A man stepped out. He approached the vehicle. Michael later recalled believing the man might be a police officer. Then suddenly, the stranger raised a gun and opened fire. Bullets tore through the car. Glass exploded. Panic erupted. Within seconds, the attack was over. Darlene Farron was killed. Michael Majo survived, despite serious injuries. And that changed everything, because survivors can provide information. For the first time, investigators had a witness. Michael described the attacker. The details weren't perfect. The encounter had happened quickly and under extreme stress. But it was enough to convince detectives of something. The two attacks might be connected. Same type of victims, similar circumstances. Nighttime attacks, young couples. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. But what happened next shocked everyone, because the killer wasn't satisfied with escaping.
He wanted recognition. He wanted publicity. And he was about to make sure the entire country knew his name. A few weeks later, several newspapers received mysterious letters. The writer claimed responsibility for both attacks. At first, editors were skeptical. Anyone could claim to be a killer. But then investigators noticed something disturbing. The letters contained details that had never been made public. Information only the real attacker could know. That meant one thing. The author wasn't pretending. The author was the killer. But the letters contained something else. Something strange. Something unexpected. Ciphers. Pages filled with symbols. Codes. Encrypted messages. The killer challenged the public to solve them.
And demanded the newspapers publish his words. Or else. The media complied. The ciphers appeared in newspapers across California. Suddenly, the entire region became obsessed. People tried solving the puzzles at home. Experts studied the symbols. Everyone wanted answers. And eventually, one of the ciphers was cracked. What it revealed was chilling. The message spoke about killing, about collecting victims, about the killer's twisted beliefs. But there was one thing missing. His name. The Zodiac had once again hidden his identity. Then came September 1969, Lake Berryessa, a peaceful lakeside location. Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were enjoying a quiet afternoon. The sun was out. The atmosphere was calm. There was no reason to be afraid. Until a figure appeared. The stranger wasn't dressed normally. He wore a black hood, a strange costume, and on his chest, a symbol investigators recognized immediately. The Zodiac symbol. For the first time, victims came face to face with the man behind the letters. What followed was terrifying. The attacker bound the couple, then launched a brutal assault. Cecilia Shepard later died from her injuries. Brian Hartnell survived, and his testimony would become one of the most important pieces of evidence in the entire investigation. But even after such a shocking attack, the Zodiac wasn't finished. Not even close. Just weeks later, he would strike again. This time in the heart of San Francisco. And this attack would nearly lead to his capture. October 11th, 1969. Taxi driver Paul Stein picked up a passenger. At first, everything seemed routine. Just another fare. Just another customer. But before the ride ended, the passenger pulled out a weapon. Moments later, Paul Stein was dead. Witnesses saw portions of the crime. Police rushed to the area. For a brief moment, it seemed possible. Maybe this was the night the Zodiac would finally be caught. But somehow, he slipped away once again. Years passed. Investigators followed countless leads. Suspects emerged. Some looked promising. Others were eventually ruled out. Evidence was re-examined. Handwriting was analyzed. Fingerprints were studied. DNA testing was attempted. Yet the answer remained out of reach. Who was the Zodiac killer? How many victims did he truly claim? Why did he send those letters? And how did he manage to evade capture for decades? More than half a century later, the questions remain. The mystery remains. And somewhere, hidden within old evidence and forgotten clues, the identity of the Zodiac killer may still be waiting to be discovered. And that's what makes this case so terrifying. Not just the murders, not just the letters, not even the ciphers, but the fact that after all these years, the man behind them may never be known.